So you want to create a new project. Maybe it's a film or a play or a podcast, a book, a game, some other kind of product. The thing is, it's based on something else, somebody's life story or characters from some other kind of previous work. Maybe it's an adaptation or a remake, a reboot, a sequel, or a spin-off. Maybe it's based on the story and the characters or the universe from that other work in which your characters and story exist. Well, first, it's important to determine whether the underlying material is protected under the law. Underlying is the way we refer to the pre-existing material that something's based upon, and the underlying rights are the legally protected rights that someone may own in that material. So our inquiry starts by asking what exactly you're adapting, remaking, copying, or basing your project on, and whether that's something that's actually entitled to legal protection. Is it intellectual property, or merely an unprotected idea that's embodied in that thing that you're adapting? You see, ideas, facts, concepts, and themes are not entitled to legal protection under copyright law. It's the particular ways in which those things are expressed by the author that can be protected. So suppose, though, you're basing your project on a person and their life story. Then you need their life rights, don't you? Well, not so fast. Now, it's true that in Hollywood, producers often do get people to sign life rights contracts, but life rights isn't really a thing, not a form of property at all. Remember that I said that facts aren't protectable under copyright law? Well, the events of a person's life are facts, aren't they? So they're not entitled to any particular protection. So why then do we hear all this talk about purchasing life rights? That's simple. It's fear. It's risk management. When it's possible, we like to do a life rights deal with the person who's the subject of the project, so we can avoid the risk and expense of lawsuits that might claim the project invades their privacy or contains false information and therefore amounts to libel. What the purchaser of a life rights deal gets are a promise not to sue, access to the person and their family and photographs and memorabilia, things like that, cooperation, as well as the promise not to cooperate with others, and the right to embellish or change the events and portrayals, or even to fabricate things. Now, that little bundle of rights can be very, very valuable, but it's not always necessary. Think of the unauthorized biography. If you're telling a story about a person that's true and based on factual events, and it doesn't invade their privacy or create some false impressions about them, then it's quite possible to proceed without a life rights agreement, and thus you don't need to clear any rights. But if the work you're using as source material is subject to copyright law, then we need to do a little bit of a deeper dive. We have to ask, are those rights still protected? Works created more than 95 years ago are not. They've fallen into the public domain. But most newer works, those created between 1927 and 1977, are protected. And under the most recent copyright law, works of authorship created since 1978 are protected for the life of the author plus 70 years. So they are certainly protected. Okay, so we've determined that you do in fact need some rights. Now what? Well, the process is actually relatively simple. But that's not necessarily to say that it's easy. We start by identifying the correct owner of the rights that you need, and this is often the most challenging step. Research the Copyright Office records, check with the publisher, and sometimes it's even necessary to review probate court records to find the current owners. Once you've found them, make contact and just basically ask for the rights that you need. Now, how you go about asking will depend somewhat on whom you're contacting. If you're dealing directly with the author or the author's heirs, then it may be as simple as reaching out with a phone call or an email or a personal interaction or letter. But many literary estates are represented by agents or managers or attorneys. And in that case, it's really best to submit your inquiry, that is your request, in writing. And sometimes the rights in the material that you're looking for will be owned by a company, perhaps a publisher. In that case, again, submit your request in writing. What rights should you ask for? Well, that's as simple as telling them what you intend to do. Are you writing a screenplay? Then you'll want to inquire about the adaptation rights for a motion picture or a television project. Writing a stage play or musical, then you need the rights for live performances in that medium, as well as to publish the play and maybe even make filmed adaptations of it. When should you ask? Well, there are several schools of thought about this. Some say you should just go ahead and create your adaptation and then go get the permission. That way, they reason, you can show the rights holder the work that you've done, which could convince them to say yes. But others suggest just making a pitch, a short summary of what you intend to do. Sometimes this takes the form of a slide deck or a lookbook or something. And along with the proposed terms of the deal, that's your pitch. And the third school of thought says that you really shouldn't spend your time, energy, money, or any other resources on doing adaptation work until and unless you've locked in the rights, and thus the opportunity to monetize your efforts. Personally, I land somewhere in between those second and third options. I think it's okay to craft a simple pitch. Just don't invest too much time and energy, because there are too many good ideas, freely available materials that you can spend your time and resources on that you can without risking the chance that you won't be able to generate earnings from it. So focus on what you can definitely use. For now, the bottom line is this. If you want to create a project, whether it's a film or a play, a podcast, a book, a game, or something else, and it's based on something else that pre-existed your work, well, then it's likely that you'll need to obtain some rights. Consider this carefully. Don't waste time and energy investing in the project until those rights are secured. Navigating these rights-related questions and deal terms is always easier when you have the help of an experienced entertainment lawyer. So if you'd like some help, please reach out to us and schedule a consultation.